The statement lasted less than 2 minutes. William stood beside Catherine, every word measured, every pause heavier than the last. The cameras captured calm faces. They missed the trembling hands just out of frame. Then came the sentence nobody expected. King Charles had left behind one final wish, not a political request, not a royal instruction. A deeply personal demand that threatened to fracture the people closest to him before the country even understood what had happened. Silence swallowed the room. Questions exploded across every screen. Why announce it now? Why did William look as though every word cost him something? And why did Catherine briefly lower her eyes before the broadcast ended? Before we continue, take a second to like the video, subscribe, and tell us where you're watching from. Now, because what happened after that announcement changed everything people believed they knew about the royal family. The palace insisted there would be no further comment. That promise lasted exactly 43 minutes. A senior palace aide, Eleanor Hastings, quietly disappeared from the official schedule. Reporters noticed first. Staff members refused to answer questions. Security protocols shifted without explanation. Officially, nothing was wrong. Unofficially, the palace had entered damage control mode. The public assumed Charles's final wish concerned succession. They were wrong. It centered on forgiveness, not public forgiveness, private forgiveness. A handwritten letter, sealed months earlier, had instructed William to invite someone back into the family's inner circle after years of painful separation. A person Charles believed deserved one final chance. The instruction stunned everyone who read it, especially William, because the name inside the envelope reopened wounds the family had spent years trying to bury. Catherine read the letter twice. The second reading hurt more than the first. She understood immediately why Charles had hidden it until the very end. He knew nobody would agree while he was alive. He also knew his absence would remove the last obstacle powerful enough to force the conversation. The palace lawyers argued it was merely a personal request. Charles's closest confidant disagreed. It wasn't a request, he quietly reminded them. It was his final command. The debate grew sharper behind closed doors. Every hour that passed made the silence outside feel more dangerous. Then another surprise surfaced. Charles had not written only one letter. There were 3. One addressed to William, one addressed to Catherine, and one addressed to Queen Camilla. Nobody except the royal solicitor had seen all 3 together, until that afternoon. When the envelopes were finally opened side by side, every assumption collapsed. Camilla's letter contained no political guidance. Instead, Charles thanked her for carrying burdens the world would never fully understand. He admitted there had been moments when duty had demanded impossible choices. It was the closest thing to an apology anyone had ever seen him write. Camilla broke down before reaching the final paragraph. For the first time in years, palace staff witnessed not a queen, but a grieving widow. Meanwhile, Catherine quietly reread her own letter. Charles praised her strength, but one sentence refused to leave her mind. When the truth arrives, protect William from carrying it alone. Protect him from what? The answer came sooner than anyone expected. Late that evening, another sealed file emerged from the royal archives. Nobody even knew it existed. Its release had been authorized personally by Charles. Inside was documentation connected to an old family dispute everyone believed had already been settled years earlier. It hadn't. Important conversations had never reached the public. Several trusted advisors had deliberately buried them to preserve stability. Charles knew. He had allowed the silence, not because the truth was harmless, because revealing it earlier might have destroyed relationships beyond repair. Now those same documents threatened to do exactly that. William stared at page after page without speaking. His expression changed, not with anger, with disappointment. He realized someone he had trusted for decades had hidden crucial information from him. Someone who had convinced him certain decisions had been unavoidable. They hadn't. The betrayal wasn't political. It was deeply personal. The person responsible was Sir Malcolm Reeves, one of the palace's most respected advisors. For 30 years, Malcolm had protected the monarchy with relentless discipline. He believed stability mattered more than honesty. He convinced himself every lie had served a greater purpose. When William confronted him privately, Malcolm didn't deny anything. Instead, he quietly admitted the truth. "I wasn't protecting the crown," he confessed. "I was protecting all of you from each other." For one heartbreaking moment, William saw not a villain, but an exhausted old man crushed beneath decades of impossible decisions. Then Malcolm handed over one final folder. "I couldn't hide this anymore." Everything changed again. The folder contained Charles' personal journal. Not every page, only selected entries, enough to reveal a devastating secret. Charles had known his health was declining far earlier than anyone outside a tiny inner circle realized. He deliberately concealed the seriousness, not out of pride, out of fear. He believed announcing the full truth too soon would trigger instability inside the institution he had spent his entire life preparing to serve. William stopped reading halfway through. Catherine finished every page. Neither spoke for several minutes. The journal ended with one heartbreaking sentence. "History remembers crowns. Families remember regrets." That single line spread through the palace like fire after the journal quietly circulated among senior royals. Old disagreements suddenly looked smaller. Old resentments felt heavier. But before anyone could process the emotional shock, another crisis erupted. The existence of the journal leaked. Nobody knew how. International headlines exploded within minutes. Television panels speculated wildly. Commentators invented stories faster than facts could emerge. Every network claimed exclusive information. Most of it was wrong. The palace faced a brutal decision: continue hiding the truth, or reveal enough to stop even bigger lies from taking hold. William chose transparency. Not complete transparency, only enough to honor Charles without violating his privacy. It became the hardest speech of his life. He acknowledged his father's regrets. He confirmed the existence of deeply personal letters, but he refused to expose intimate family conversations simply to satisfy public curiosity. Some praised the restraint. Others accused him of withholding the real story. Neither reaction prepared him for what happened next. Eleanor Hastings, the palace aide, who had vanished, returned unexpectedly. She carried one object, a small recording device. Charles had made a private audio message weeks earlier, not for the public, for his family. Everyone gathered quietly as the recording began. His voice sounded tired, older than anyone remembered, yet unmistakably steady. He spoke about mistakes, about pride, about silence. He admitted that duty often demanded sacrifices. Then he confessed something nobody expected. "The greatest mistake I ever made wasn't trusting the wrong people." A pause followed. It was waiting too long to tell the right people how much they mattered. Nobody interrupted. Nobody moved. When the recording ended, Catherine reached for William's hand. No cameras captured that moment. No official statement mentioned it. But everyone present understood something had shifted forever. Sir Malcolm submitted his resignation before sunrise. He accepted full responsibility for years of concealed decisions. No public scandal followed. Only quiet departure. His punishment wasn't humiliation. It was living with the knowledge that every secret he believed would save the monarchy had ultimately wounded the people he hoped to protect. Camilla withdrew from public duties for several days. Not because of controversy, because grief had finally overtaken obligation. For years, she had stood through criticism with remarkable composure. Charles's letter broke the armor no public attack ever could. William carried out his father's final wish, not because he agreed with every word, because refusing would have meant ignoring the final voice of the man he had spent a lifetime trying to understand. Some relationships healed. Others never fully recovered. Certain conversations happened years too late. Some apologies arrived after the people who needed to hear them were already gone. That was the tragedy Charles seemed to understand before anyone else. Power could command ceremonies. It could organize history. It could not rewind time. Long after the headlines faded, people remembered one thing above everything else. Not the announcement, not the letters, not even the secrets. They remembered a family discovering that the hardest inheritance was never a throne. It was unfinished forgiveness. If this story made you think differently about duty, family, and the cost of silence, don't forget to like the video, subscribe, and tell us in the comments. If you were in William's position, would you have revealed your father's final wish or protected the family's secrets forever?